can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught in the middle of life, and I need.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. And I'm your host, your brother, and your friend Rashid. And hopefully, as we do this live stream, they won't mess with the stream like they did this morning when we did the channel member and the Patreon stream. So hopefully there's no buffering, there's no knocking me off the air, there's no pausing clips, there's no interfering with the show. And I don't really care if YouTube takes the subscribers like they did, but I'm talking about hopefully that we can get through the show without all this pettiness that goes on. Okay, I would rather you just block me off the air than to do the stuff that you're doing behind the scenes. Seriously. So everybody, thank you all for joining me on this platform, and I just had to get that out because I was still seething from earlier this morning when they were doing what they were doing to the platform. Okay, so we're going to be talking about a lot of things, people, because there's a lot of things going on. And as the show is titled, The New Ringling Brothers Circus and Clown Show, this is exactly what it is, okay? So I want to get to something first because I saw a lot of this going on earlier. Where is it at? Yeah, there was something during this week. And shout out to everybody who's joining us live and those who will join us later. They're messing with the thing right now. The links for Locals, Rumble, and Odyssey has been cut. That has to be StreamYard doing that. That has to be StreamYard. Okay, I got it just here. But we're still streaming on YouTube and both channels, the backup channel and the main channel, the Red Pill Diaries and the Red Pill Journals. So, excuse me. I want to go to something that I heard about 5 or 6 days ago, everybody talking about, okay? And I wanted to see if anybody was really going to address the report seriously. And there was a report that says that Trump waved off a planned Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear reactors and stuff, right? As a matter of fact, Reuters, the British mouthpiece, has an article out on April 16th, and it says Trump opposed the plan. Man, what is Reuters doing? Reuters is blocking me off. Okay, here we are. Trump opposed a planned Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear sites, New York Times reports. Washington, April 16th, from Reuters. U.S. President Donald Trump blocked the planned Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear sites in favor of negotiating a deal with Iran to limit its nuclear program, the New York Times reported on Wednesday, citing administration officials and others. Now, let's stop right there. Do you think that's credible? Did he wave it off because he thought a better deal was in the works? Huh? Do you believe that? If he waved it off, it was because all of the pieces were not in place. It is not because of a better deal. Because remember the clips that I played from the direct negotiators of the JCPOA stating that others may say there's a better deal. But there are no better deals. This is the best deal that could have possibly taken place. All right? So if the JCPOA negotiator said that, and listen to what I'm saying to you all, and America, France, the UK, Russia, and I believe Germany and China signed off on this, along with Iran, right? Then they must have come to that conclusion also, that the best deal to be had was the deal that was negotiated by the United States in bringing on board nations that were actually opposed to the deal at first. And they brought in France, Germany, the UK, China, Russia, and Iran all along aboard this deal, right? So if that is the case, and it is the case according to what we have in historical records, that is the case. And if we look at that steady case and say, Who was the violator of that deal? Was it Russia? No. Was it China? No. Was it the U.S.? Yes. Was it Iran? No. Because we have proof from former U.S. politicians that said that Iran had been in compliance with the deal and that it was the United States that ditched the deal after forcing everybody else to join that deal, right? So if these are the cases, and they are, because as I said, we can point to it, we can go back to it, and we can look at it. We can read the dossiers and the papers on it. We can look at the videos and the clips and the sound bites. If the better deal was to be had then, and the U.S. walked away from that better deal, do you now believe that a strike on Iran was waved off because they wanted to negotiate a better deal? Huh? How is that when there was no better deal to be had? Sometimes, listen, when you're listening to the show, sometimes I play clips over, and sometimes I play new clips along with it, and sometimes I just talk to you, and whatever the subject matter may be, if it calls for the playing of an old clip, I'll do it. I don't care if it aggravates a few people because I'm trying to reach the masses, because sometimes things are overlooked in those things that you've seen. Have you ever noticed that when you read a book, every time you read something, or you look at a movie, every time you look at it, even if you looked at it 30, 40 times, when you look at it again, you get something out of it, right? So the same is true when we're looking at evidence that could bring the world to war or to peace. And it is very imperative that we be patient and we listen to things that are said to us, okay? And then we examine them. U.S. President Donald Trump blocked a planned Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear sites in favor of negotiating a deal with Iran to limit its nuclear program. But that deal was already in place. It was called the JCPOA. And it was the very nation Israel that put pressure on the U.S. and refused to accept all of the verification processes. Now listen, Israel has illegal nuclear weapons and will not allow anybody to inspect it. And she's whining about what Iran may have. The United States has thousands of nuclear bombs and is afraid that Iran may get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why is that? America and her allies can get as many nuclears as they want without a peep. But somebody that they deem an enemy, they are now really scared that they may get one. Why is that? People have to ask these questions because these questions are key to understanding why we're in this position today. Because if I get a nuclear weapon, you cannot do to me what you did to Syria. You can't do to me what you did to Libya, what you've done to Somalia, what you're doing to Yemen, what you've done across the Horn of Africa. What you're doing in Latin America, what you've done to Haiti, what you've done to Ukraine, what you've done to Georgia, what you're doing to Romania and Moldova. With a nuclear weapon, it puts pressure on you to step back. You may have a lot of them, but all it takes is one. All it takes is one. And you cannot afford to have Iran or other nations to have that because it's the great equalizer. And without you being able to bully anybody, you can't force your policies. You can't force and dictate to the world what they should and shouldn't do, could and couldn't do, and what path they must take. This is unacceptable to a nation and a leadership with the mind that they're exceptional, manifest destiny. It is my inherent right to rule the globe. It is my inherent right to lead the world order. It's my inherent right to go in and remove nations' leaders because they disagree with my policies. It's U.S. interests abroad. What about people's interests in the United States? You'll say, well, it's none of their business. Well, don't they have that right to say that to you? Huh? How is your interest in West Asia to supersede Iran's interest in West Asia when Iran can't pick up his country, is right there in the center of West Asia. But you're 7,000 to 9,000 miles away and your interest supersedes Iran. or your interest in the Asia Pacific region supersedes China when China is an Asia Pacific nation and you are on the other side of the globe? Why is nobody talking about this? Why don't any channels bring this up? Shout out to Brian Belletic because he brings it up a lot. That's my guy there, Brian. I want you to think about the stuff that I'm saying to you. Man, listen, don't get mad at me. To bring things home, let's see what it says right here. Let's see a short clip on that nuclear agreement before I go into this a little bit more, okay? Please don't be mad at me. I gotta play the clip so that you can understand that these people are lying to you. They say any and everything because they don't respect you, and they know that you have a short memory, and they can get you mesmerized by foolishness on the TV, sport and play, while they're robbing the people blind and sending their sons and daughters off to die for imperialistic goals, not for freedom, not for justice and equality, but for greed and imperialism and capitalism. That's what this is about. So I want you to pay close attention to this because we're going to come right back and we're going to see if what Reuters and the Trump administration and the New York Times and whatever else had to say, see if it's the truth and if it holds water, okay? So listen to what Mr. Kerry says, okay? Here. On the nuclear agreement. I'm trying to see which one it is.
The deal. Could you deal with some people say, oh, we've got the 5+1 together again and negotiate a better deal? You're beginning to deal with that. Will you deal with the problem of getting that 5+1 again to get on the same position you're in now?
One of the reasons, Sir Harry, that we felt it was important to move forward with this negotiation is the fact that the sanctions was already framed. Remember, folks, we don't trade with Iran. We have a primary embargo. And by the way, the primary embargo will stay. And the embargo on them for arms weapons stays. And we have other UN resolutions that prohibit them from sending weapons to the Houthi, weapons to the Iraqi Shia militia, weapons to Hezbollah. We have all the things in the world to be able to enforce and deal with their behavior. It just hasn't happened sufficiently. But the bottom line is that under this agreement, Iran is in a much tighter box, if you will, because they have to live up to the international agreement with the threat that all the sanctions will snap back if they don't. And they will snap back automatically. One nation alone can bring them back. And we will have the support of France, Germany, Britain, China, and Russia when that happens, because it'll be under a process. But if everybody thinks, oh no, we're just tough, the United States of America, we have our secondary sanctions, we can force people to do what we want. I actually heard that argument on television this morning. I've heard it from a number of the organizations that are opposed to this agreement. They're spreading the word, America is strong enough, our banks are tough enough, we can just bring the hammer down and force our friends to do what we want them to. Well, look, a lot of business people in this room. Are you kidding me? The United States is going to start sanctioning our allies and their banks and their businesses because we walked away.
So that's the clip where I wanted to play next, but since we're on there, isn't that exactly what's happening? The United States brought everybody to the table, forced everybody to accept the deal, and then it walked away from it, and now it's threatening to sanction the very people who took part in the deal, who lived up to their parts of the deal, and the only one that did not live up to his part in the deal was the United States, and after it pulled out of the deal, it forced the UK and France to abdicate their responsibilities about the deal. And Iran is the problem. Come on, man, stop this. So let's go to this clip. This is the clip right here. I think it is. Oh, here it is right here. This, I'm not going to play the whole thing. I just want you to listen to what he has to say, all right, about a better deal.
Usually follow along wisely. But the point I want to get to is this, that when you came in and when you assumed this responsibility, let's say you'd done nothing. Let's say you went skiing again, okay, and you had an accident, whatever it was. Where would we be now where would we be now if we'd done nothing? Where would Iran be? How much danger would we be in? Or would we have lost an opportunity?
Well, listen, I will answer that question. I'll answer it directly, but I need to put this agreement into its proper perspective, folks. You have to look at the history. And when I hear a senator or a congressman stand up and say, well, we should get a better deal, let's stop and we'll negotiate and go get a better deal, that is not going to happen. There isn't a, quote, better deal to be gotten, because George Bush, to his credit, in 2003 tried to get the better deal. And to his credit, in 2008 tried to get the better deal. And what happened was, in both occasions, Iran went from a 103 or 4 centrifuges to 19,000. They went to 12,000 kilograms of fissile material, low enriched, but if further enriched, it would have produced 10 to 12 bombs. They mastered the fuel cycle. They went to 19,000 centrifuges that could rapidly break out if they chose to, but they didn't. So what everybody in this room and everybody in the world who is looking at this deal needs to understand, you can't just sit there and say, oh, I say no, let's not do this deal. We'll just go get a better one, and not take into account the history of the road that has been traveled here. When people say, oh my gosh, I'm worried about what happens in year 15 or 20, they may become a nuclear threshold nation. Folks, they are a nuclear threshold nation today. They became that. And they became that while we had a policy of no enrichment. That's the policy. So when I became Secretary of State, what did I find? I found 12,000 kilograms of material enough for 10 to 12 bombs, 19,000 centrifuges, a country that's mastered the fuel cycle, and was rushing to the completion of the Iraq heavy water plutonium reactor, which would allow them to produce enough weapons-grade plutonium for 2 bombs a year. That's where we found them. We have rolled them back from that. Only President Obama has put in place a program that's actually stopped that. And what nobody gives Iran any credit for, let alone the administration, is the fact that we're already 2 years into full compliance with an interim agreement. They rolled back their centrifuge production. They rolled back Iraq. They actually stopped all work at Iraq. We negotiated that. They have stopped all enrichment at Fort Al. We've verified it by having 24/7 inspections of those facilities.
Boom, boom. There goes the dynamite. And why did I play this? What I'm showing you is a track record of distortion, picking and choosing, and lying to get to present Trump or Biden or the leader's position over the facts. The fact says that Iran was compliant. Not only was Iran compliant, but they had the capability and still have the capability right now to go nuclear within a few weeks if they so chose to, but they have abided by the deal even as the United States pulled out of the deal when Trump was first president. Do you understand this? These are made up disagreements. These are made up and fabricated stories as to give the empire an enemy to target. And Iran sits on the target list because Iran is a member of the BRICS now. Iran is an observer or a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Iran is a member of the West Asian Economic Organization. Iran is now aspiring to be a full-fledged strategic partner of Russia and China, and it sits, by the way, in the middle of where the U.S. and the West always wanted to run their so-called Pipelineistan to siphon off all of the resources of Eurasia and redirect it to Europe. And this, you have to understand, is a threat to dollar hegemony. Therefore, they must neuter this threat so that they can then suppress and bring to yield a quickly rising Chinese nation. This is what's going on. These are fabricated threats. You just heard Kerry himself. As a matter of fact, what did he say? He says, not only can we run about the deal, but we have 24 hours surveillance, right? And they didn't even activate their other nuclear plant. Now, that goes in contradiction to what General King said when he says Iran has not allowed that. See, these people, matter of fact, let me play the clip. See, it's one thing for me to tell you this stuff. It's another thing for you to hear them and then put them up against facts, okay? Now, John Kerry was the chief negotiator for the United States. When he negotiated the deal, everybody, the UK, the US, France, Germany, Russia, China, and Iran all had agreed to terms. All of them had been verified. So now we're getting all of this fluff stuff in the press, put pressure on Iran. America wants to either bring Iran to yield, to cower it, to bring it to yield, and then forcefully bring it on the Western side, or it'll go to war to do it because they feel like China is the most imminent and pressing threat that they see. And this Belt and Road Initiative is one of the main drivers in this threat assessment because it will neuter the U.S. sanctions regime, and it will then put pressure on U.S. dollar hegemony, which is the life's blood of the American empire and the life's blood of the Western so-called rules-based order. Okay? So listen to what King says, and remember what Kerry said, all right? Kerry says that we verified this because we have 24-hour inspections on all of their nuclear facilities, right? All right, so you remember that, and let me bring something to your mind. Let me lay a little bit, something a little heavy on your mind. And look at this liar right here and what he has to say about this. King is a liar, okay? Listen to what he says.
On Saturday, President Trump is set to reopen direct talks with Iran. Listen to what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said about that.
When it comes to Iran, the president has reimposed crippling sanctions on the Iranian regime, and he's made it very clear to Iran they have a choice to make. You can strike a deal with the president, you can negotiate, or there will be hell to pay. And as the president said yesterday, if they don't choose to move forward with diplomacy and a deal, which is the direction we do see them headed in, there will be grave consequences.
Grave consequences. Okay. Retired four-star General Jack Keane joining me again here in New York City. Are we on the brink of an attack on Iran? I raised the question because we reported yesterday there are 6 B-2 bombers that have been assembled in Diego Garcia. They carry the bunker-busting bombs that you and I have talked about a lot. Are we getting ready for an attack?
Yeah, I mean, we're absolutely making preparations. I think what the president is very sincere here in trying to get the Iranians to voluntarily dismantle the program. So he's issued them an ultimatum. And what does that really mean? It means the Iranians would have to give up all of their nuclear materials. They'd have to dismantle their facilities that they have, and some of them are 250 feet in the ground with 3 feet walls. And they're also their ballistic missiles as the delivery system. But here's the big catch. We want anywhere, anytime inspections. The Iranians, in their entire history, have never granted that. They let you go to a certain site.
Heard that lie? You heard that? What he said, in their entire history has never granted that. What did Kerry say? We have 24 hours inspections on all of their nuclear facilities. So who are we to believe? A man who has been out of service and who is a war hawk, right? And Kerry is a war hawk himself too now. Don't get twisted. But that guy there, Kerry, who negotiated the deal, who are we supposed to believe? Evidently, the United States believed it because they signed on to it. Evidently, the UK and France believed it because they signed on to what Kerry said. Russia and China signed on. Germany signed on with it. Iran signed on to it. So now we have all of these people and nations that sign on to it. And then this guy who has no insight, no direct knowledge of what's going to tell you that Iran has never done that. You see how quick they lie? Because they don't respect you. You understand? Yeah, man, I'm telling you, these people are crazy. Oh, man. Shout out. Who is that in the chat? Let me put something up. Shout out with the super chat. Thank you so much. Chili Pepper in the building. Thank you. Chili Pepper says, just watch Colonel Douglas McGregor. He thinks if Haysom goes, Trump might bring in Tom Cotton, the most evil lying warmonger Zionist next to BB. Heaven and God, please no. Shout out to Chili Pepper. Yeah, thank you so much. Listen. So, again, we are looking at the lies being spewed right now. And I want to go back to what Chili Pepper said real quick. Let me put this back up here for a second, okay? Chili Pepper says, just watch Colonel Douglas McGregor. He thinks if Haysom goes, Trump might bring in Tom Cotton, the most evil lying warmongering Zionist next to BB. Well, I think pretty much anybody that's in that position, they're lying, they're warmongering, and they are close to BB. You know, I believe that. So it's not just Cotton. You take your pick, just put the names in the hat and put your hand in. They are all stooges of empire. All right, all of them. They're stooges of empires, and what they're trying to give you is a fake choice. They're trying to make you believe that you have a choice in the matter when they have already made the decision to go to war with Iran. That decision was already made. I want to go to something real quick. Let's see. Oh, Brooke Chin says, he says, Tom Cotton is way more hawkish than Haysom. Oh yeah, he is. I got to get you. But both have you guys ever took a look at? And I'm not promoting the guy's book, but Haysom's book. This dude is like a extremist. Look at his tattoos. This guy is like an extremist. Does not believe in any negotiation, does not believe that anybody has a right to defend themselves against America, does not believe that America has committed any sins or anything wrong. This guy is like out there in the Netherlands, Etherlands or whatever. Seriously. But let's go to something. So let's go back to this real quick, this article. Israel had developed plans to attack the sites in May, according to the newspaper, which added that the goal was to set back Iran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon by a year or more. Now, stop right there. We know that's a lie because the United States and Israel tried, when they tried to attack Iran, the Iranians put into practice their newly acquired Chinese air defense systems. A lot of people thought that those were Russian air defense systems, right? But they were Iranian and Chinese air defense systems that went into action. They may have used a couple Russian, but from what was told to me, and then when I went back and looked over some of the footage, those were clearly Chinese air defense systems that repelled the attack on Iran, and they were not destroyed, contrary to what was being reported in the news. That's why they have not attacked Iran. But Israel may have had plans, but Israel does not call. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack by this, but Israel over there does not call the shots. Listen to me good. The Zionists call the shots, but it ain't in Tel Aviv. It's in London and Washington. You don't think they're infested with these Zionists? Huh? You don't think that? So when you talk about this, a lot of people say Israel calls the shots. No. They may have something to say about it, and then they may rub elbows with the other Zionists, but it's not a cohesive unit. These guys are fragmented just like all the other ones. That's why you have the ebb and flow, Let's attack now, let's attack later. But one thing is for sure, let me share something with you. One of the reasons the attack didn't take place is because all of the armaments have not been shipped yet. The United States has been carrying out massive shipments of arms, radars, and missiles to Israel on a daily basis. This has not made the news. Major. Why do you think China is in Egypt right now doing war games? Huh? Because they understand that what China is demonstrating to Egypt is that their weapons are better than the Western weapons, right? And that Egypt should take a second look at dealing with the West in the way that they've been dealing, because Egypt is like how can I say it? a patsy or a fall guy in the Middle East. Egypt is the most powerful, well, was the most powerful military. And like Nixon once said, in the United States, each president after Nixon concurred with this point, that if the U.S. loses Egypt, they lose the Middle East. Nixon and Kissinger formulated the policy, and each successive president thereafter continued to believe that if the United States loses Egypt, they lose the Middle East. This is why the United States is now double timing, supplying more weapons to Israel. It's not that they waved off the attack time was not right. We just gone over the lies that they were just telling you. So why would we believe them that they waved off the attack when you just heard this press secretary just threaten Iran? Oh my God. The press secretary of the U.S. just, matter of fact, 31 seconds, listen again.
On Saturday, President Trump is set to reopen direct talks with Iran. Listen to what White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said about that.
When it comes to Iran, the president has reimposed crippling sanctions on the Iranian regime, and he's made it very clear to Iran they have a choice to make. You can strike a deal with the president, you can negotiate, or there will be hell to pay. And as the president said yesterday, if they don't choose to move forward with diplomacy and a deal, which is the direction we do see them headed in, there will be grave consequences.
Does that sound like negotiating? That sounds like a demand for total capitulation. Negotiation means me give a little bit, you give a little bit. Let's come to some agreement. Didn't that happen in the JCPOA? Huh? And who pulled out of the JCPOA? Huh? And after he pulled out of the JCPOA, what did he do? Threaten Iran, right? You don't remember? Well, I'm going to refresh your memory.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction. Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned by the United States. America will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail. We will not allow American cities to be threatened with destruction, and we will not allow a regime that chants death to America to gain access to the most deadly weapons on earth. Today's action sends a critical message. The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them.
See how this man was fishing? U.S. will not allow any U.S. We will not allow any U.S. citizens to be cities to be threatened. Iran never threatened to bomb U.S. cities, but the U.S. threatened to bomb Iran cities. Nuclear blackmail, you continue to say that you'll turn Iran into a desert of glass. Iran hasn't made those threats against you. They called you the great Satan. You hadn't proved them wrong. Because the word Satan used to mean one whose evil is not confined to oneself, but affects others. So if that was the definition, you fit that to the bill. You fit that to the bill. And your policies have proven to be more satanic than anything. Because you will not stop. You're in everybody's business trying to tell everybody how they should live, how they should govern, how they should manage themselves, how they should do such and such. And at home, everything is falling apart. The wheels are coming off. You, on one hand, you scream about, and this is just for the cameras. And one moment you scream about, oh, we need to stop the bloodshed in Ukraine. Too many people are dying in Ukraine, and yet at the same time, you've given orders to bomb the hell out of the Yemeni people. You've been bombing Somalia for years. So their blood doesn't count. Their lives don't count. But you're talking about the lives of people in Ukraine. Man, stop this hypocrisy, man. I mean it. Stop it. Because I'm going to call it out. And maybe that's why the powers that be with YouTube and StreamYard and all the rest of them continue to unsubscribe people, not send out notices, take my subscribers from me and all this. Man, okay. All right. All right. We're going to keep it pushing, though. So, this guy says he would sanction everybody that will help Iran get a nuclear weapon. Iran, did you hear what Kerry said? That Iran had the capability to do it and refused to do it. That's what Kerry said. They know because they were in there. They knew what was going on. And he said that they could have quickly built 10 to 12 weapons, but they chose not to. So that goes in contradiction to all of the stuff that they've been spewing in the media. All of that rhetoric and that brouhaha that's coming out of the hot air balloon Trump. The same stuff was coming out of the mouth of Biden. They continue to just blow hot air and smoke up your behinds and hoping that you think it's a sauna. Red just called to come get her. My wife just came in here. My daughter was calling on the phone, and I had to swipe it away while I was talking to you guys. But anyway, think about what I'm saying to you. If what I'm saying, put what I'm saying to you on a scale of facts and weigh them, and see whether or not what I'm telling you is the truth. Huh? I'm not the great strategist and geopolitician or geostrategic analyst or nothing. I'm just me. And I'm telling you what common sense dictates. Okay? So this man threatens to sanction everybody. And what did he do? He threatened to sanction everybody. Then what did he do? He followed through and sanctioned the entire world. And what did Kerry say would happen? That this, my dear friends, would quickly be the recipe for the end of the US dollar as the world reserve currency. And what are nations doing now? Huh? Because it seems like Chef Trump went in the kitchen and he put all of the ingredients to that recipe in the pot and it stirred it up, and now it's coming to a boil. Don't you think so? Let's go to something real quick. All right? Let me go to a clip real quick. I want you to see that. Well, before we go to the clip, I want you to read something. I want to read something with you guys real quick. Here we are right here. And shout out to everybody's in the chat. Hey, we have about 65 people, according to my YouTube thing. We have about 65 in the chat or whatever. Please hit the like button. It doesn't cost you a thing. Let me hold on 1 second, everybody. Let me close my the door here, okay? It came back open. Hold on 1 second, everybody. Give me a second. All right, there we are. My door came open. My wife came in. She didn't close it all the way in my little office area. So please forgive me for that, but this is live. Check this out. So on April 16th, an article came out by the Wall Street Journal, and it was reported by RT or Russia Today News. And this is what it says. Let's see. Hold on. Somebody said something up in this chat. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much, Sherry. Let me go down to something. Let's see. I see you too, Perseverance Chameleon. And what you said about Africa. Maybe I'll address that shortly too. But thank you, Sherry, so much. I really, really appreciate that. Let me see something. Brooke, I know about that. If you would put that back up in the chat and maybe like this one right here, because I know the chat jumped, but if you put that back up in the chat in about 5 minutes, we'll try to get on that, okay? What you just put up here. Okay. Let's go. Now, the article is titled U.S. to tie tariff deal to China curbs, according to the Wall Street Journal. And this is how it reads. Washington reportedly aims to leverage tariff negotiations to isolate Beijing. Before we go further, let's look at what that means. Okay. Meaning of isolate. Okay. I'm sorry. My I was tapping a little bit too hard. Okay, the word isolate is an adjective. All right. It means far away from other places, buildings, or people. Remote. Remote, out of the way, outlying, off the beaten track, secluded. That's what we need. And these right here. Similar, solitary, lonely, companionless, unaccompanied by oneself. So now we have an understanding of they're trying to do. They're trying to take the friends of China away. Why? Because they're trying to soften China up for the war. Remember when they made war against Russia? They didn't just attack Russia using Ukraine. No, what they did was a multi-pronged, multi-vector. They put a multi-vector plan into place. They befriended former Soviet nations. They then put in their so-called aid programs in there. Then they flooded these nations with their covert operations teams to find out the dissatisfied in those nations, as they always do. Then they groomed the dissatisfied until it was a time when they set the stage for them to then take the position to take on the authorities so that they can take over, so that then they could move that country out of Russia sphere over to the Western sphere. And once they did that, guess what they did? They started doing war games with them. Oh, it's innocent. Then the next thing you know, some of the troops never go out. Then they start sending troops in these countries in civilian clothing. And then when they get over there, they get back into their uniforms. They start building bases over there. This is something that they've done. This is a track record of what they've done. And so they've done that, and then they finally got to a point where they said, you know, we're going to test our plan. And they tested their plan in Georgia because they thought Russia's military was corrupt and not good enough to stand up to the U.S., NATO, and Israeli and armed Georgian armed forces at the time. And Russia routed them. And I want to add this point. When Russia routed them, guess who was Saakashvili's advisors? Americans, Brits, French, and Israelis. They were in the presidential palace during the routing of the Georgian armed forces. Okay? So then they said, well, we've got to get Ukraine. We've got to get Ukraine. And they started doing it, but on a Ukraine. And what they say after the military operations began by Russia, they said they always wanted to bring Russia to its knees. They wanted to beat Russia down. They wanted to break its economy, break its military, right? Put in a compliant and friendly government, right? So this is what they're doing with China. This is what they're trying to do with China. Isolate China, arm everybody. Use your proxies there to destabilize the Baton Rouge plan in Baluchistan. Destabilize Afghanistan. Make war with Iran. Overthrow and then put in a color revolution government in Armenia. This is what we're seeing. Attacking China is Restless Native. Thank you. Shout out. This thing is jumping. I'm sorry, everybody. Divide and conquer, right on. That's what they're doing. Divide and conquer. So this brings us back to this article. Listen closely. And the reason I'm quoting this article is because I got a little clip I want to play for you guys to show you the arrogance and the hypocrisy in real time with the West. Rules for thee, but not for me. Do as I say, but not as I do. I'm telling you, this is the mentality of the West. Let's go further into this article. The U.S. plans to use tariff negotiations to push trade partners to scale back economic ties with China, the Wall Street Journal reported on Tuesday, citing sources familiar with the talks. The strategy is reportedly aimed at securing commitments from countries hit by recent U.S. tariff hikes to help isolate China's economy and pressure Beijing to negotiate. Who was the person that told you when America first introduced these sanctions, who were they aimed at? It was me. When America announced 3 nations being sanctioned, Canada, Mexico, and China, who was the one that said, oh, this is the start of what they're trying to do against China? I said, even the sanctions on Mexico and the sanctions on Canada were not sanctions on Canada and Mexico. They were sanctions on China. And I'll explain that to you in just a second, okay? First of all, those two nations were just thrown in, first of all, so as to cover the true target of American sanctions, which was China. So when they announced sanctions on all three, the United States then, at the last minute, pulled back the sanctions on two. Guess who was the one that was not given a reprieve in the sanctions? China. Now, then they implemented the sanctions, but guess what they implemented them on? On the very things that China imports to those nations that they export to the United States. So not only were they attacking China directly through direct sanctions, but they were attacking China indirectly through indirect sanctions. And I was asking the whole time, why is he not saying this? Go look, if you think of what I'm saying is that, go look at what China exports to them and see what was sanctioned. Okay? So now, we look at this, and it says that they're going to use the tariffs to leverage themselves so that they can isolate China. That is not the only thing they're doing. Now it says up here, the U.S. could block DeepSeek, right? Because it's better than what the U.S. has offered. It says the White House is reportedly concerned with China's AI success and is looking to slow its progress in the industry. What are they doing also? They're against TikTok. They're against everything. Why? Because, and don't think that Mr. Trump and his group of billionaires don't know what's going on. They are fighting a war to maintain U.S. dominance in all of these fields. Don't think when they're sanctioning and trying to force Apple out of China, right? Don't think that this is not an attack on China itself. This is. What follows economic war? Tell me, everybody, what follows economic war? Military war, right? Where are we right now? We're on the cusp of a military conflagration, right? All right. So look, not only that, then they go and say, well, how dare China warns countries not to align with the U.S. in trade. How can they do that? You just did the same thing. You just said that you would use your sanctions as leverage to isolate China. Matter of fact, let's go to something real quick. Listen to this.
Also, President Trump is warning countries against cheating to get around his tariffs. But China may be taking steps to interfere with trade talks between the U.S. and other nations. What is going on? Grady Trimble of Fox.
See how they phrase that? Trump is now going after people who are helping China get around the sanctions, right? Right? That's what's going on. That's what it's saying. And it says China may interfere. Hold on. Interfering in China, how are they interfering in their own business, in their own well-being? They're not interfering. What they're doing is stopping you from interfering. In Bizarro World, this is how they phrase statements on television and in articles. They make the victim the aggressor and the aggressor the victim. Let's listen to that again.
Also, President Trump is warning countries against cheating to get around his tariffs. But China may be taking steps to interfere with trade talks between the U.S. and other nations. What is going on? Grady Trimble of Fox Business live at the White House. Hey, Grady.
Hey, good morning, Dana. China says that if the U.S. makes any deals at the expense of China, then it's going to, quote, take countermeasures in a reciprocal manner. And some experts are warning that Beijing could try to strike deals with European countries, for example, that are too good for those countries to refuse at the expense of the United States. But President Trump doesn't seem deterred from his plan, posting on Truth Social about the countries trying to reach agreements with his administration, saying, "It's good to see that the world knows we are serious, because we are. They must right the wrongs of decades of abuse, but it won't be easy for them. But for those who want the easiest path, come to America and build in America."
I got a readout from from Jameson Greer yesterday, and it looks like we're north of 15 now of legitimate, serious offers on the table. The thing I could say you could look for is that when we think a deal's really, really close, then my expectation is the president's going to want to meet with that world leader here in the White House in order to close the deal.
So we will be paying very close attention to which world leaders are coming to the White House in the not too distant future. And here's what the Trump administration is trying to address, or at least cut into: a $300 billion trade deficit with China. Administration officials say despite that number, the U.S. actually has the upper hand.
China imports 11.5 million barrels of oil a day. They import about 25% of the calories they consume every day. And so when we think about the U.S. and us as being a superpower, we're an energy superpower, we're a food superpower, and China is highly dependent.
And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who has been one of the leads in negotiating these new trade deals, he's meeting with his South Korean counterpart this week, I believe, here at the White House. So the wheeling and dealing continues despite these new warnings from China. Dana?
Grady, thank you so much.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our...
So now, isn't that something? In bizarro world, up is down and down is up, in is out and out is in. Now, the United States is dependent on China for rare earths. It's dependent on China for the uniforms that the soldiers wear, microchips that go into computers and themselves, the chips that go in, and other kinds of electronics that go into their fighter planes, submarines, and everything. All that comes from China. And you're telling me that, oh, China is energy dependent. Yeah, but they're getting ready to open up the Siberian power pipeline, the second one, right? With China, with Russia. And this is what I'm telling you. They won't directly attack China at this moment. They're trying to weaken it. That's why they're destabilizing Africa, because China gets a lot of resources from Africa and West Asia. So they're trying to make it unbearable for the Chinese and unprofitable for the Chinese to get that resource there, because these nations are now selling it in yuan and not in dollars. So with the terror units, you know, the United States has all of these sleeper cells around the world. When they say go, before you know it, somebody comes up. It's a Boko Haram. It's a whatever. And all of them, the U.S. out of the blue knows the entire history of them, the founders, the families, the genealogy, everything. How is that possible? How is that possible? They pop up out of nowhere and you know everybody. You know the name, everything. How is that possible? What they're doing is trying to destabilize the world. As a matter of fact, I got a good this quote that my son said, and we used on another show. As my son was reading one of my books, Zoo. And right before I went on live one day, I think it was last week or week before last, and he said, Pops, I was listening to what you were saying. And then I started reading this. He said, isn't this pertinent to what you said? I was like, yeah, I'm going to bring this up to other people. And I did. And there's a quote by Circus that says, an evil man will burn his own nation to the ground to rule over the ashes. This is what we see going on. If you don't think what that is an apt quote to right now, let me go to something real quick. This is what the IMF said 5 hours ago, not 50 hours ago, not 5 days ago, not 5 years ago, not 50 years ago, 5 hours ago. IMF says global economy will be hit hard by Trump's tariffs. The International Monetary Fund slashed its growth forecast for the global economy to 2.8% as President Trump's tariffs risk sparking a trade war. So he's not concerned about the economic well-being of America, much less the world. He is trying to, listen, this man is trying to burn the system down because he understands that the system is about to go. But he wants to put America in a position to dominate whatever system comes up next. You know, like when you're dealing with a dilapidated building, and you see this, it is structurally unsound, right? And everybody's telling you, hey, man, things have been falling off that building. And you go and you do your assessment on it. And you say, hey, this is dangerous. This is structurally unsound. So before it can fall down and hurt the neighborhood, you call in the wrecking crew, and they stage a demolition so that they can use that very valuable land to build up something else. This is what the West do. And bombs at the base, the dollar-based system, hoping that even if the dollar-based system collapses, they will still be in a position where they can retain leadership and rulership over the border. And in the fight like hell to that. And that is an evil man will burn down his own nation, burn his own nation to the ground to rule over the ashes. We see that happening right now in real time. Nobody's making this up. We see it in real time. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. Let me go down real quick. It's jumping, so please forgive me. The chat is jumping. Restless Native says, we all know how that supremacy works. The West thinks they are still more than superior to people of color and have divine right to rule. The proof's in the pudding. How can you on one hand say that you are a true Christian, okay, or true Muslim? But in this case, we're going to talk about these people who go before the camera and say, oh, I believe in such and such. And on the other hand, turn a blind eye to the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of people in Palestine because you have this religious mind that these people are supposed to be here. And if we don't bag them, then we're going to hell. And then you want the jihadis, extremists, when you're backing an extreme regime in Tel Aviv. Your whole moral stick to that is that you have to stand up for Israel because in the Bible, you misread the Bible, you misquoted the Bible, and you don't understand the Bible. And so you use your ignorance as a foundation to rule over the other people's ignorance. You understand? We're going to nip that in the bud right now, okay? We'll nip that in the bud right now because a lot of you use this, so we're going to see. And I just want you to pay close attention to this because I'm very read when it comes to Holy Quran and it comes to Bible, okay? So listen to this. The reason you have these, what you call Christian Zionists, is because they have read a book that they don't understand and they've taken it literal. Okay, they say Israel, the Israelis are the Jews are the chosen people, and Jesus is a Jew. Who said that Jesus was a Jew? He never said that. That was what you said. You can't say show me that in the book. And so the reason I'm going here is because we've got to clear up this madness here. On one hand, somebody in the news yells Allahu Akbar with a knife in your hand, he's an extremist. But you're yelling the love for Jesus and you're bombing capital after capital, dismantling government after government. And that is not extreme in your eyes. And you're doing this because you say you have a religious and moral obligation to uphold Israel. Well, let's see about that. We'll see if they're the chosen people, okay? Okay? Let's go to your book for a minute. Israel, according to your book, was called Jacob at first, right? Yaqub. In Arabic, it's Yaqub. In English, it's Jacob. Right? How did he get the name Israel? Or how did that nation get the name of Israel? It said that an angel of God came to bestow a blessing on Esau, not on Jacob, on Esau. Right? But Jacob, being jealous, stole the blessing of his brother. And he held the angel and wrestled the angel all night till his life was preserved. Okay? And every time the angel said, I need to go, he said, no, I'm going to hold you. I'm going to hold you until you bless me. So the angel asked, and listen to what I'm saying now. This is not religion. I'm just showing you that you can't pull this on me. What did he say? The angel said, what's your name? He said, my name is Jacob. He said, oh, Jacob. That should now be called Israel. Now, we see how Israel got this beginning. Through sticking up. You know, the thugs on the street that hold people for ransom and rob people, strong arm people. Is that not what happened? Huh? If I send you to deliver a message to somebody else and somebody intervenes and rob you of that message, the message was never intended for them, even though they may be beneficiaries from it, but it wasn't meant for them. All they are enriched thieves, according to common sense. And if I sent you, not only when you stick up that guy, you become an enemy to the person who the gift was meant for and the person who brought the gift, but you're also an enemy to the person who sent the gift. Is that not right? Common sense. Forget religion for a minute. Common sense. Huh? So now when we look at it through the mind and through the sight of a sound, rational, sane person, you cannot say they're chosen. How the hell can you be chosen when to get your blessing, you stole it? That's the act of a thief. Okay? So don't you miss me with that chosen stuff. Okay? You become chosen of God when you do your duty to him. Okay? All of this other stuff, miss me with it. Now let's go further. All right. Yeah. Dorian says, finally caught you live. Love the show. Thank you so much. Because on this show, you're just going to get the truth. I'm going to offend a lot of people. All right? But there was an old saying about my mom. She used to say, it's better to get pissed off than get pissed on. Okay? Woo. It's heavy, right? So, sometimes being offended can benefit you because it lights a fire under you to try to disprove something that you heard. And when you go into the researching of it and you can't disprove it, guess what it does? It shines light on your ignorance, and then you can remove the stigma and the ignorance that dominated you to an enlightened thought. All right? Let's go for, hey, my baby. Give me a few minutes. All right. My baby just came in to tell her dad how she just got home from work. My daughter, hard working baby, my girl. And Mom, your girl came home. My mom asked when my daughter comes around, and you know they get the whispering. Me and my brother, we always make jokes about it. They get the whispering, and then my mom don't want you to say nothing about it, so she tells us off. Just a little family humor. I just wanted to share with you all because I'm looking at you all like your family because we're trying to teach the truth. Okay, now let's go back to that. The IMF. Man, I got my window open in my office and these bugs are flying in. By the way, everybody who understands, I got some new chickens too. Everybody knows that I got chickens on my property, whatever. But Brian will use that and laugh at me with that one. Let's see. This IMF issued a warning, and yet nobody took it up. Nobody said anything about it. And hold on. This warning was issued 5 hours ago, and this is what it's like. I just read from you from on Google, and this is what it's like on RT. Okay. And everybody, please hit that like button. We got about 65. Where in the heck is my thing? We got about 65 people on viewing this. I'm sparks off the chain. I couldn't even let that one go past me. I had to put that up there for a minute. M Spark is off the chain. All right. So let me see something. Let me take this down for a minute. And let me go over here to the World Economic Order undergoing major reset, according to the IMF. Listen, this is what's driving these people insane. World Economic Order undergoing major reset. Hold on one second. People say, Rashid, why do you go into so much definition? And my idea is the people know that if you don't understand the words, you can never understand the conversation. So you have to get an underlying understanding of the word. Because you may think they mean something, and they may mean something altogether different. Okay? So, let's go to something real quick. All right? According to Google, the word reset is a verb, right? It means set again or differently, all right? So now, when we look at that definition, which is a shortened definition, I can get you a longer definition, but that shortened definition brings us to this. World Economic Order undergoing major reset, IMF. What is the reset? Oh my God. Let's go. Let me use some lingo that the investors use, okay? They say the markets are due for what? A correction. All right? Correction, okay? So, I'm sorry. All right. The word correction means the action or process of correcting something, rectifying, rectification, righting, putting right, saying right. All right? Now, the markets are in or due for correction. We see the global scene is due for correction. The housing market, debt market, right? All that balance. So correction. Now, why did I say that? Because it shows you that we've been living the wrong way. We've been thinking the wrong things. We've been implementing the wrong policies. Because when something is right, there's no need to correct it. You only have to correct something that is wrong, right? So the markets are wrong, right? The policies are wrong. The way of governance is wrong. That's why there is a correction underway. For if they were right, there would be no need or no necessity for a correction. If I ask you what's 2 and 2 and you tell me 4, I can't correct you on that. Why? Because that's absolutely right. But if I ask you what's 4 and what's 2 and 2 and you tell me 2, then there's a correction in order. Because that's wrong. Right? So we're living in the Great Reset or the dawn of a new paradigm. Okay? And so let's go back to this article real quick. Where is it at? Okay, here it is. It says the International Monetary Fund has slashed its 2025 outlook for growth, global growth. It says the International Monetary Fund has cut its global growth forecast, saying that the global economic system is undergoing a fundamental, listen to this part. Okay, this is very important. They say things, normally when they want to hide something, they'll say it in the first or second paragraph, because they know you're not really paying attention. Most people start paying attention deep into the article, right? Listen to what it says right here. The International Monetary Fund has cut its global growth forecast, saying, what is it saying? That the global economic system is undergoing a fundamental transformation and mounting uncertainty over U.S. trade policy. Fundamental. All right, let's go here. All right. All right. I'm sorry, everybody. It says, I put a correction on everybody. Second. Me. All right. So, according to the dictionary, the word fundamentals comes from fundamental, which is a noun. And it means basics, essentials, rudiments, foundation. Here we are right here. Foundations, basic principles. Remember that word foundation. Now let's go back to here. The International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, has cut its global forecast, saying that the global economic system is undergoing a what? A foundations, or what? A fundamental transformation. But it's telling you is at the root of it. something is changing. At the base of it, something is changing. So they want you to look at the grass, which withers away with the heat. They don't want you to dig into the ground and look at the root system. But right here, the IMF is telling you that what is going on is more than superficial. It goes to the very base and heart of the world economic system. And what is at the heart of the economic system? I'm asking you all, okay? What lies at the base of this economic system? The dollar. Is that not right? The dollar. Now, if the dollar is at the base of the system, because remember, we go back to Bretton Woods and then Bretton Woods, and then after we go to Bretton Woods, we realize that the dollar becomes the petrodollar, and it is then regalvanized and re-energized as the world reserve currency, right? And that is the heart of international trade and commerce, right? But it is being withered away by currency swap agreements, joining different groups and stuff where they're doing trade in their own currency and their own systems outside of SWIFT, outside of U.S. domination. So the IMF is telling you that what is going on is monumental. It is earth-shattering. We're entering a new paradigm where the old will not. See, listen, let me stop right here for a minute. Let me bring something to you. If the old was sufficient, there would be no need for the new. Right? That's common sense. Even those who have benefited from the old system are telling you how wretched it is, and they want something new. The only difference is they want to rule the new. But if I allow a system, there's no need to change the system. If you who benefited from the old system get into the new system with your wealth and your power, because you're just going to turn the new system into that which you benefited from out of the old. So all of that has to be done away with. And this is the part that they don't like to tell you, because it's ugly. If there has to be a new system, old people who govern the old system can't be over it, lest they turn the new into that which they govern for. Those who benefited from the old system cannot benefit in the same manner in the new system. Then infuse the new system with the corruption, the inherent corruption and greed of the old system. There must be something altogether new outside the clutches and grip of the power elite of the West. This is what they don't want you to understand. This is what they don't want you to know. And nobody wants to talk about it because it's an inconvenient truth. It is very ugly for those who have benefited from this system. But what about the masses who have been in turmoil, who can't feed their family, who are struggling right now? This is good news to them. Because if something is on its way that is more just, more fair, then they can get a leg up. And how dare you get a leg up if this is a capitalistic system? Because capitalism feeds off ignorance. It feeds off slavery. It feeds off exploitation. And when you fight your way through capitalism and you're able to stand on your own, it becomes a threat. Look at China. China is now the most imminent pressing threat to the United States because it's able to stand on its own. It doesn't need the dollar. As a matter of fact, I was looking at something. Let me see. There is something that's out right now. Hold on one second. I got to pause this real quick because this is about to come on my screen. Hold on one second. I hate when this happens. Hold on one second, everybody. Okay, hold on. This is coming on my screen. I gotta pause this. So there's an article that came out saying China orders companies to these commercials. Hold on, everybody. All right, here we are. China is ordering companies to stop paying their debt in U.S. dollars. It says, and not only is China doing that, they're telling them to stop making payments. And then it says that this is one of the causes of what took place in the debt market with massive sell. Okay, now in fact, let me pull up something on that debt market real quick. Where is it? Where was it? I thought I had. I might have moved it off the screen. But you notice recently we had a massive debt market implosion, right? That was one of the reasons why, because the Chinese had given word, hey, dump Boeing, stop paying in U.S. dollars to, and then turn around a lot of the shipping, the ships that were on their way to the West, because the U.S. was no longer looking like a safe haven. Matter of fact, where is that? Here's one of the articles right here about Chinese airlines were told by the government to not accept Boeing aircraft. And the business that were denominated in dollars, China says, put a pause on that. Put a pause on that. And don't buy any new debt in U.S. dollars. That's what caused the massive sellout in the debt market. Nobody talks about it, because these are inconvenient truths. Man, I'm telling you, what does this say? The reset is the fantasy the Western elites live in. Yeah, let's see. Hold on, everybody. Let me see if I can pull up that. I might have, when I put up Sun Tzu, I might have removed that off the screen. All right. But where is that? I moved it. I'm sorry, everybody. I moved it off of there because I was putting up so many things up here, and I had to move some of the screens off so that I could bring the definitions up. But anyway, that was one of the things. China is preparing itself for the eventuality of war. They're not just talking it. Do you know when we heard one of the pundits say that China is relying on imports for 20% or 25% of their food? What you don't realize is China has strategic reserves of everything. They've been building up their strategic reserves of everything from copper to gold to silver to oil, gas, food, seeds, all of that stuff. They have huge strategic reserves of that in case of war, in case there's a blockade. That's sound, that's smart, that's rational. But America has none of that. She has an oil reserve, right? But it was depleted, and she's still trying to refill it. This is crazy. The West, they are lunatics now. And these are the lunatics that are running the asylum. Okay? We're watching lunatics run the asylum. That's why the show is called what it is. About this circus, this new Barnum and Bailey, this Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey circus. Full of clowns. They don't want to understand what's going on. Trump said, oh, this is good. This will bring jobs to America. This will bring corporations back. Okay, say for instance, the corporation come back. Let's just grant him that, okay? Let's use his reasoning. Say right now the corporations leave China and come back. How are they going to produce the goods? Because it takes skilled labor to do that. And how are you going to get them up and running and efficient to keep down costs here? Remember, in the West, it's all about the people at the top making as much profit as they can. So do you believe that they're willing to sacrifice their profits to try to train people when it's going to take a generation to get them in a position to learn the skills that they need to learn to run those businesses in those factories that they need to learn to run? This does not happen overnight. This man is selling you guys dreams. He's saying, just one more time, I can pull a cupcake out of my behind. Don't believe this stuff. Man. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Let's see. I'm looking at. Oh, here we go. Absolutely. Boom. Mic drop moment. Sheldon Williams says, voodoo economics, absolutely. They might as well cut off some chicken heads and start pouring blood in the sky and burning incense and saying, doing a chant to try to empower or to get skilled laborers. Now, And then they don't want to pay the skilled laborers that they have. These corporations are so greedy that they would rather hire 5 people to do one position for a couple hours apiece than to hire one proficient and efficient person to do that job, because they have to pay benefits and they have to pay a certain amount of money to that person, and they have to recognize that that person is needed by that corporation. So do you actually believe that these greedy jokers at the top are going to risk all of those massive profits for generations? Because it's going to take 20 years to get these people skilled. And once and here's another problem about in the West. Once you train them, they may leave the corporation. There's no loyalty, just like with the government. There's no loyalty. Huh? So they may get the skills and then leave, and then you wind up training somebody. Isn't that a complaint that a lot of these bosses said that they don't want to invest money into these people because some of them work so long and then they quit and then they have to reinvest in another one and they do the same thing? See, they're not dealing with reality. Samuel Hale says, how long before the apocalypse starts and pure pandemonium? I think it's very close. Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but we're in the apocalypse. We're in it. Do you not see how 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the little nations would not stand up to America because they were so scared? You don't have just nations now. You have little nations. You have island nations. Hell, nations in the Caribbean are standing up to the United States. Do you see how everything that the West tries to put over on the people fails now? Huh? Once they were dominant in the media where they could brainwash, and in radio and on the internet. But that is no longer the case. And with them losing this, they are now lashing out. We're in the apocalypse. One system dies or crashes or burns or is destroyed to make way for something better. That is apocalyptic. That is earth-shattering. That is historic. And Marino says that's biblical. And these people are putting themselves in a position now that if I can't rule, I'm prepared to kill everybody. Kill everybody. Oh, I hear some point to say, oh, we can't believe that America and the West would be prepared to do that. Then what the hell are they doing? And instead of investing in the dreams of people, in the livelihood of people, I know they talk patriotic, right? But instead of the rah-rah and the patriotic talk, how about you put some butter on that bread and help the homeless veterans, help the ones that have mental disorders? How about you make sure that the families of the veterans who were killed or maimed have a house to stay in, food to eat, power on? Huh? That's patriotic, right? And if you're not doing that, you're just spitting air to the wind. We're watching. We're watching the collapse. It's in real time. Get your popcorn. This is the greatest movie ever recorded. Because you're looking at one world die in a new world coming in. Science dictates to us that two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. They cannot do that. One must give way to the other. So we're watching two worlds collide. America and the West are trying to stop the collapse of their world, whilst everybody else is saying, bring in a new world because I can benefit from that new world. So we have two worlds, two civilizations, as they call it, colliding. That's the apocalypse, baby. And when the debt market implodes, as Gregory Manarino says, he said this will be biblical, because when the debt market implodes, it has the ability to kill more people than a nuclear exchange. People will be hungry. Think about this. I want you to think about this, and because that apocalypse was a good thing to talk on. China is now turning around its ships, right? China is now telling companies not to pay their debt and pay the dollars. All right. China is now telling them to now focus inward. We built up our economy where if this happened, we can go through it. But America's slammed with debt, deficits, corruption, arrogance, ignorance, foolishness, materialism. All of these hedonistic qualities lend their way to a downward spiral of civilization, to making savages. If you don't believe what I'm saying, go to a neighborhood 3 blocks down the street, around the corner. People are on the street. People are sleeping in front of stores. You have people that'll rob you for shoes, people that'll take your life with you with your daughter, people that'll rape you, rob you. The devolution of the mind, the savagery, is a reflection of the policies of the government, because the government has shown nothing but savagery when dealing with nations abroad. So it's a reflection of the people, and the people are a reflection of the government. The devolution of the American empire and the Western world, when all lives don't matter, just mine. All security doesn't matter, just mine. Everybody having an opportunity to go up the ladder doesn't matter, just mine. And guess what? To keep my wealth, I'm gonna dumb down the people in my society, because that keeps my power. And not realizing that it also lays a thermonuclear bomb at the base of your society. Because the dumbing down of the masses of America has put it in an uncomfortable position where it cannot compete with the rest of the world anymore. But it's China's fault. It's Russia's fault. It's North Africa's fault. It's South Africa's fault. It's Latin America's fault. It's the Caribbean's fault. It's Eurasia's fault. It's never America's fault for her arrogant, racist, fascist policies. It's never Britain's fault. It's never the EU's fault. It's never NATO's fault. It's always everybody else. And my mom always says, when you're pointing that finger, remember, 3 more point back at you. So even though America is pointing the finger here, she's also giving you a glimpse of who the real culprit is with those other 3 fingers pointing back at her. Hit that like button, man. We've been on the air for a good little while. It doesn't cost you anything. You haven't, I mean, come on. We're talking, we're building together, we're conversing together, we're going over facts, we're dissecting this stuff. Come on, everybody. Show your boy some love. Hit that like button. Okay? I'm not begging for donations, even though donations would be nice. Super chats would be nice. But I'm saying, if you can't do that, hit the like button. All right? So let's go further. Thanks, Rodney. Y'all today. Shout out to you, M Spark. Shout out. Let's see. Yeah, China virus. China interfered with the man. This is what I'm saying. It's always Region 9. Absolutely right. It's always somebody else. It's always somebody else. They're not talking about the laboratories that they set up in China. Because the U.S. had a laboratory in China. They're not talking about the outbreak of the Ebola virus and what is it? What was the African nation? It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, the U.S. has experimental labs dealing with the Ebola virus in that country, and now there's an outbreak. In another African nation, they're dealing with some kind of bird flu or monkeypox or something. The United States has a bio lab that's dealing with the exact same thing. When does not become coincident and become on purpose? Brooke Chin says, what about talk Fort Detrick? Oh my God, boom, mic drop moment. Talk about Fort Detrick. No one says anything about that. The bioweapons, chemical weapons epicenter of the American empire, Fort Detrick. Absolutely. So, see what I'm saying? We're building together. That's why I'm saying hit the like button, everybody. And your participation is always welcome. We learn from each other. This is the way to educate people. We may differ, but we're adults, so we can be agreeable to disagree. Don't have to call each other names and all of this stuff. That's childish. Okay? But if you want to go there, we can go there. I'll say, but I warn you not to. Brooks here said, already hit the like button. That's what I'm talking about. Salute. So, let's go back to this article here. Where were we at? So, and also, let me say something. Oh, yeah. Perseverance Chameleon. Dr. Judy Mikovits wrote a book about Fort Detrick. Oh, man. Whoa. Also, let me put this back out here for the channel members that are on and the patrons. You can leave a message at a private message me, and I have we'll talk about it on the next show. But it's something we're giving away some more stuff. Okay. Apocalypse means the unveiling, the lifting of the veil. That's right. Like, if you really want to get into it, you heard me quote the Bible, right? You heard me quote it when I was dealing with Israel, and I wanted everybody to see that they're not this chosen people that everybody talk about. I mean, you can't put this stuff on me, but now we're going to go into Quran, okay? And in the Quran talks about how Gog and Magog would sally forth against each other, right? When God removed that curtain, that veil, and removed that veil, and the veil was the only thing that kept Gog and Magog apart, right? What is a veil? A veil is a curtain, right? What was removed? What curtain was removed that forced Russia and the West to go at each other? The Iron Curtain, right? And the Quran says that Gog and Magog would sally forth and reduce the earth to a veritable hell. What are we living in right now? Everybody's at each other's throat. On the street level, at the government level, and at the nation's level, right? Things are being reduced to a veritable hell as America and the West realize that their time is up as the rulers. When you've been sitting on a horse, you just don't get off the horse if that's your horse. If you feel that's your horse, you don't get off that horse for another rider. The next rider got to come and pull you off the horse. That's what it is now. America is not getting out of the throne of rulership globally, even though her debt is outrageous. When she could just then say, you know what? Let me bow out gracefully and then try to retain some dignity and focus inwardly. And maybe the people will have mercy on me for the hell that I put on them. Now I'm going to focus on my own people. Instead of that, she's willing to take the world to thermonuclear war. Oh, by the way, China just exploded a new weapon. A new weapon that's like a hydrogen bomb, but it has no radiation. A lot of you didn't know that. They just came out with a new weapon that is as deadly and as powerful as a hydrogen bomb or a thermonuclear bomb, but it has no radiation. That's something. I just thought I'd put that in there for you all. Go search it. Let's see. Love and respect and gratitude. Love and respect and gratitude back to you. Is this the man that stole peace from the earth? Let's see. Yeah, non-nuclear hydrogen weapon. Brooks here. Yeah. Non-nuclear hydrogen weapon. It has the devastating effects of a hydrogen bomb, but without the nuclear fallout. It's crazy, right? Who knows? Maybe Iran might have one or two of those. Because if they did, guess what? It would not be in violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty or Iran not gaining nuclear weapons. I'm just saying. I'm not saying they have them. I'm just saying. Okay? Let's go further. I think we've talked about a lot of stuff today. And I feel your patience on this because it's an hour and 35 minutes. Listen, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to do it. I can't do a show in the morning. I have a physical I have to go to in the morning. And see about all that wear and tear from the years of martial arts in these joints, man. I'm telling you, some morning, some morning is something else. But maybe tomorrow evening. But we got a couple more lives this week, so don't worry about that. Keep checking, and please check and see if you've been unsubscribed. Okay, please do that. Also, I'm going to make up for our patrons and our channel members this week. If not for a live, I'm going to do you a pre-recorded. I'm going to try to do a live for you, but a pre-recorded because they continue to mess with the stream. I just want all you guys to know, listen, we are in a very beautiful time. And what I mean by that is this: never in your life did you think that you would see such a power be brought to its knees. And had she been righteous, then it would be something different. But the actions have been arrogant, boastful, unconcerned about the livelihood of others, even though you put on the act that you do. But there's no way you can be concerned about the lives of others when you're prepared to take the world to thermonuclear war. So what we're watching in real time is something that your generations and generations ahead will be marveling about in the history books, that such a powerful nation will be brought to its knees. And what did the book say for you Christians? Who is able to make war with the beast except the lamb, right? Well, that beast is America. Nobody can deny that America has been the bully on the block for the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And now we're seeing her power waning. We're seeing her time in the sun coming to an end. The sun has set on the American empire, and we're moving to another direction in another day. And hopefully we start doing a self-appraisal and reevaluation and start thinking about our duty to God and our duty to each other, because that's the only thing that's going to get you out of here. I don't care what nobody else says. You got to be right. You got to do right. You got to think right. You got to act right. You can't be 100% in a world that's not 100% wrong. It's hard to be 100% right in a world that's 100% wrong, but you can strive and be 60, 70, 80% right. All right? Keep your prayers up, keep your spirits up, keep your mind up, and let's do this thing. Hell, this is just a challenge, and it's easy. Hard times don't last. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. We built for this. You're a part of the Red Pill family. We go out the same way we came in, with love in our heart for each and every one of you who loves truth. Know that I love you, but know that this always, that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Now, before we go off there, I want to say this again. Do right by others, not because there's some material gain or some accolades behind it. Do right by others because it's the right, the godly, and the humane thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching, God Almighty is watching. As my mother always says, He sits high, but He looks low. I love each and every one of you. Continue to maintain and continue to fight for truth, because in the end, truth will always prevail. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Thank you, everybody, for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth. We're out of here. Deuces.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a